It's the Boxing Day results show, and as I suggested in my prediction show, I'm going to feature 2 matches and then run through the results in the other 7. Well, I couldn't go on much further without coming to the first featured match. Of course, top of the table clash, Leicester second at home to Liverpool, who are at the Summit. Quickly, team news then. Pratt was in for Perez, and Wijnaldum replaced Oxlade-Chamberlain, who had that rather nasty injury at the World Club final against Flamenco, where he weren't long into the action before the match established a clear pattern. First minute, Arnold from range tested Schmeichel, and then a couple of minutes later Mane got ahead of Evans, and he managed to steer his effort wide when he should have scored, and that was 3 yards out. And then there was another quick break where Salah running into the Leicester half managed to round the goalkeeper, but he was forced wide and he hit the side netting. And then Henderson forced another scrambled save from Schmeichel following a slight deflection. And up until that point, there'd hardly been any attacking interest by Leicester. They did have an attack on 10 minutes, but it came to nothing. And then on 31 minutes, eventually the Liverpool pressure paid. Firmino was on the end of a gorgeous cross from Arnold from the left. Yeah, he's cropping up on the left as well as the right now, and it squeezed between Schmeichel and the near post, and that was it. 1-0 to Liverpool. A couple of minutes later, Schmeichel denied a second effort from Mane, which could have really put them in the driving seat. But the Foxes managed to get to the break just one in arrears. That Liverpool were calling all the shots, and it continued that way in the second half. Frantic defending from Leicester, from the goalkeeper, blocks from defenders, and it still remained 1-0. Lethal Liverpool on the break is my way of summary, and on another such break, Soyuncu managed to block Zaha, and then from a corner, unfortunately Soyuncu, the ball hit his hand, and the referee had no choice but to point to the penalty spot. It was minute 71, and James Milner stepped up and converted as he always did, and so it was 2-0. Well, that really opened the floodgates, because Liverpool followed with 2 more goals in the next 7 minutes. On 71, Firmino again from a corner, following a cross from Arnold, and it was 3-0. And then on 78, the man of the match, Alexander-Arnold, he was given the ball just outside the box, and he hit a superb strike that went wide of Schmeichel into the left-hand corner, and it was 4-0. It was a rout at this stage, and Leicester had hardly showed up, to be frank. Liverpool in complete charge of this one, and they've comfortably won by 4-0 at the King Power, and they now rest 13 points in front, and what a magnificent year it's been for them. Okay, the second featured match then is the one I watched yesterday in its entirety. Spurs at home to Brighton. Spurs, of course, licking their wounds after that reverse at home to Chelsea on Sunday. And Brighton also lost, but they've done pretty well on the road recently. And particularly in London, having won and drawn at Palace and Arsenal respectively. Team news then, Sessegnon was in for the suspended Son, and Winks was back for Dyer. For Brighton, no dunk, he was sick. So to the action. And first effort of note was on 12 minutes from the Seagulls, Al Zettri's dipping shot, which forced Casanegra to push it away. And then Sessegnon managed to get a free and hit a post, but he was ruled offside. 21 minutes, Moy, who was certainly having an influence for Brighton, looks a class act, the Australian. He had a shot that was deflected just wide. And then a couple of minutes later, a lovely pass over the top from Winks found Kane, and Kane does what he does best. He steered the ball into the corner, and everybody thought, oh, that's 1-0 Spurs. However, when VAR had a look at it, they found that he was about a millimetre offside. Something's got to be done about this VAR. It's spoiling the enjoyment, I think, on these very close decisions. I think we've got to come up with some alternative. So anyway, a let-off for Brighton. It was still goalless. And then, to make matters worse, on minute 36, Webster managed to get in the box from a cross from Gross, and his powerful header whistled past Casanegra, and this time the Seagulls were 1-up and no VAR. We got to half time then, and it's 1-0 to Brighton. Spurs, they really needed to up the tempo. Too many balls across, not enough going forward. They were relying on Winks to do that. Sissoko just hasn't got that ball forward. And they could really do with somebody like Ericsson, who was sitting on the bench, because not enough was happening for them. So into that second half then, and Spurs having it all to do. 48 minutes, it was Brighton though, with Moy again looking dangerous, who set up Connolly, but his effort went wide. But the defending Spurs were statuesque. And then their passing not quick enough. 52 minutes though, Kane provided the inspiration. His first effort was well saved by Ryan, but it came straight back to him, and his follow-up hit the corner. It was a great assist from Mora. Anyway, Spurs back in it. It was 1-1. 56 minutes, another opportunity for Kane following a defection, but this time his touch let him down, and so at that point the match had changed considerably, and Spurs were in the driving seat. They were on the attack. Most of the pressure was on Brighton's defence, and things were looking optimistic for Mourinho, whose expression had changed from that growl that we witnessed so often in the first half. However, on 66, a dangerous free kick from Brighton, and Casanegra had to work again to push it wide. Ericsson then came on for Winks for the last 20 minutes, and he certainly made a difference. On 72 minutes, sweeping diagonal to Ariel on the right from Ericsson, and Ariel's first touch laid it into Ali, whose delicious clip effort went past Ryan into the left corner as we were looking, Ryan's right hand corner, and Spurs have gone 2-1 up. However, the Seagulls were still positive. Moy still looking a threat. He had a shot just over, and it wasn't all Spurs by any means. Another shot though from Gross on 81 minutes, and Casanegra looking increasingly uncertain, but this time he managed to catch it, albeit at the second attempt. And then another effort from Brighton on 86 minutes. The cutback into the middle from the right, but unfortunately there was no one to take advantage. And then for the final minute, and Kane broke free. He was 1-on-1 with the keeper, but he blasted well wide. but it didn't matter. Spurs hung on, and they took this game then by 2-1. So we're going to have a roundup now of the other 7 matches, having covered those first 2. Bournemouth against Arsenal then. I watched a little bit of this. Arsenal looked good in the first half, but they went behind late on. It was a nice move by the Cherries, and Gosling at the near post converted from the cross. Into the second half, and Arsenal managed to level things up. Their strike hero, Aubameyang, got the equaliser, and they just about deserved it. It was not a bad start from Arteta. He would have been pleased with the work of Ozil. So things a little bit more promising, but final score then at the Vitality: Bournemouth 1, Arsenal 1. To Everton versus Burnley. Not a particularly great game here. Ancelotti's first game as coach. Everton had the better of things, and they finally got a goal late on from a Sidibe cross on 80 minutes. Calvert-Lewin stooped to head the ball wide of the keeper, and that was good enough. Everton taking the game by 1-0. Continue with the summary then. To Old Trafford, then Manchester United at home to Newcastle. The Geordies got off to a great start when Matty Longstaff, you remember him, he scored the winner in Newcastle earlier in the season. Well, he was on the score sheet again to put Newcastle 1 up. But it didn't matter much because the Reds came storming back, and Martial picked up a brace, and Rashford got a goal, and also a Greenwood on the score sheet again. Greenwood was the pick of the bunch, a smashing effort from outside the box. Martial also impressive. Pogba remained on the bench, although he came on in the second half. Convincing win for Solskjaer in the end, winning this game by 4-1. To Stamford Bridge now, and Chelsea continued to stumble at home. Worrying times for Lampard. Southampton were just far too good, a goal in each half. The second was an absolute peach, a real team goal. There must have been at least 20 odd passes as they moved the ball out of the defence, and eventually Redmond was there to tuck it away, and so a good win for them, beating Chelsea by 2-0. The London derby, Crystal Palace and West Ham. West Ham went in front, and they were looking promising, but then Ayew, he got on the act. Coyote, first of all, responding to an Ayew setup to level it, and then Ayew himself, a delightful jinking run through the defence, and clipped it over Roberto, and that was enough to steal the points. The final score at Selhurst Park was Crystal Palace 2, West Ham 1. Big trouble, I think, for Pellegrini. I can't see him lasting. And now to Aston Villa. They were at home to Norwich, so this was a relegation 6-pointer. Many people saw it. Norwich once again creating lots of chances, but just can't put them away. Villa, they took a while to get going. They were out without McGinn, but eventually a piece of magic from their talisman Grealish, who set up Hurahan after a great assist, and that goal was enough to steer Villa to a well-earned victory, a much-needed one. Final score at Villa Park then: Aston Villa 1, Norwich 0. And the last match I need to cover is Sheffield United at home to Watford. This ended 1-1. Watford took the lead, a great goal from Deulofeu, after a great assist from the goalkeeper Foster, and Foster was impressive throughout, making lots of saves, but eventually was beaten by Norwood. late on in the first half from the penalty spot. Good second half, but no extra goals. Final score then at Bramall was Sheffield United 1, Watford 1. Okay, so that's my summary of the Boxing Day fixtures. Of course, we've got another round of fixtures tomorrow, and I'll also bring you the result of Wolves versus Manchester City in that prediction show for Saturday's matches. Okay, that's my lot.